Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for April 18, 2023, the Wall Street Reckoning edition. This story comes to us from the NYMagazine, which says there are at least 3 related cases making their way through Manhattan courts that will probe how Wall Street may have supported and enabled Jeffrey Epstein. The first is Jess Staley, who previously worked at Morgan Stanley and others. Another against Deutsche Bank for its role in allegedly facilitating his behavior, or at least knowing about it. Next up from the New York Times, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has promised punitive actions against Disney for standing up to him, and in violation, no doubt, of every rule against taking punitive action for someone speaking out. He now says he's going to look at their tax base and may even put a prison next to Disney. Of course, Disney is the state's largest employer and indeed largest tax source, but Governor DeSantis wants to browbeat them into submission. Next up from The Guardian, big scandal in Norway with the former head of Biathlon's governing body having been charged with gross corruption following allegations he accepted prostitutes and free hunting trips from Russia. He was the president of the International Biathlon Union for nearly 26 years. He's also accused of receiving expensive watches and the aforementioned BMW. The charges follow a 3-year investigation by Norway's economic and environmental criminal prosecutors. So, corruption in sports once again, this time involving the country that's usually not at the top of the corruption list, Norway. The gifts were between $200,000 and $300,000 from Russian officials. And finally, from Reuters, reports that the SEC on Monday charged cryptocurrency exchange Brittrex and its former CEO with operating an unregistered national securities exchange broker and clearing agency. The SEC alleged in its complaint that the CEO coordinated with crypto asset issuers in seeking to make their tokens available for trading on the company's platform to delete statements that the CEO believed this would lead regulators to investigate those token offerings as securities. So even the unregulated crypto industry knew what they were selling were securities, and their overall fraud is finally coming home to roost. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.